Welcome, and in this lesson, we're going to learn how to configure a system to use an existing authentication service for user and group information. Now, as part of this course, underneath this specific section, there's a lab called Configure a System to Use an Existing Authentication Service. Go ahead and open that lab. It'll look like it does on my screen, and hit the Start Lab button. This is going to build out a full environment. Could take up to 5 minutes, so when I'm done explaining everything, we'll have you pause your video and start it when it starts again. But what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to connect a Red Hat Enterprise 7 machine to an LDAP connection. Now, in this specific lab, we're going to be using an Active Directory backend in order to connect with single sign-on. However, this is going to be exactly the same as we're going to need to know how to do inside the RHCSA exam. We are not learning how to configure the backend Active Directory or Kerberos LDAP server. We are learning how to connect our client to an existing machine for single sign-on. So what's going to occur is there's a user on our remote Active Directory server. And what we're going to do is we're going to connect our Red Hat 7 client to that remote server. And we're going to be able to use that centralized user on any Red Hat machine that's connected to our LDAP or Active Directory server. So it's called single sign-on. Instead of having to manage a user or local user account on every single Red Hat machine that you now have centralized login. And we know that in corporate environments, this is very much common practice. Corporate environments generally actually use Active Directory for all of their sign-on purposes, and you can integrate with the Active Directory. So if a user is a member of the wheel group inside of Active Directory, that will spill over to our machine that's connected to the Active Directory server. And we're going to learn how to configure that here in this lesson. So go ahead and pause your video until your lab is started. Once it's started, go ahead and start your video again, and we'll pick up from there. Go ahead and copy your IP address, and let's go ahead and connect to our machine. I'm going to connect using my Linux Academy, and then my public IP address, and the password 123456. Now, I'm also going to work as the root user, which I need to do in order for this to work. I'm going to clear my screen and get to a good starting point. Now, what we have to understand is that there's already an Active Directory server in our lab environment. It's called ad.linuxacademy.com. In fact, if we did a ping ad.linuxacademy.com, we would get a proper response. So what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to connect this Red Hat 7 client server. It's going to act as a client to our Active Directory server. And that way, whenever we log in with a centralized user in the system, it will automatically create a home directory for that user. So let's go ahead and install. We'll do a yum install -y realmd. This is required in order for us to discover our realm or our Active Directory LDAP realm in order for us to connect our machine to. So now that this is installed, I know that my realm name is ad.linuxacademy.com. There is a lab guide for this. And if you're not using the lab guide, you can also expand under our scenarios, and we see that we have our fully qualified domain name, our domain administrator username, domain admin password, and our single sign-on. This is our user inside of our Active Directory in our remote server. So now we're going to do a realm discover, and that's going to be ad.linuxacademy.com because I know that's my domain fully qualified domain name. So we do a realm discover, and what it's going to do is it's going to say we have discovered a realm inside of your environment. And it's going to say, in order for this to properly work, we need to make sure that we have these packages installed. Now, before I do this in our lab environment, I'm also going to do a yum upgrade -y. And that's going to update all of our packages inside of our system. You could have done a yum update as well, because in Red Hat 7, yum update and upgrade do the same thing for us. So go ahead and let this complete, and then we will discover those packages again and install those individual packages. So now that our update is complete, we'll again do realm discover ad.linuxacademy.com. So the packages that it suggests for us to install: oddjob make homedir, SSSD ADCLI, and Samba common. We need to install those. We'll do a yum install -y oddjob -mk homedir. It's going to help automatically make our home directory when a new user logs in. And we'll go ahead and complete it with our Samba common. So we're going to install that. And really what's going to take the most time here is updating and installing stuff on our system. We really only have a couple more commands and we're all complete. So now that that's completed, we can do a realm join ad.linuxacademy.com. So we'll join the realm. Password for the administrator. Again, over in our account here, we have an administrator and Linux Academy 123 exclamation point. So we'll do Linux Academy. It is case sensitive 123 exclamation point. In order to verify that this worked, we can do a realm discover again on ad.linuxacademy.com. And it's going to say we are a Kerberos member, it is Active Directory software, and that we are connected to it. We also have our login format, how to centrally log in using single sign-on from our Active Directory over to our Red Hat machine. Now, there's one other thing I want to make sure I have configured. So we're going to head and open up our vim, etc, ssh, sshd config file, and we are going to browse down to our Kerberos authentication. And we are going to just make sure we have all our Kerberos authentication uncommented and set from no to yes. So we'll go ahead and make those changes, save and exit. Then we'll do a systemctl restart on SSHD. So now that that's completed, let's go ahead and try to log in to our Red Hat machine. So now let's go ahead and look at our etc passwd file. And let's grep for a user named test because that is going to be our single sign-on user. We'll notice that there's not a local user on my machine for test. However, if we now try to log into that system, we'll use SSH. Now remember, if we have a realm discover ad.linuxacademy.com, the hint here is it tells you what packages you needed and also showed us our login format. So while that's loading, I'm going to do a -L to specify the login. It's going to be the test user because that's the user on our Active Directory server in our lab environment. So test at ad.linuxacademy.com is our login, and then the IP address that we're connecting to. Now, if you look at it here, it says our login format. It says %user, that's our username, then at linuxacademy.com. If you notice, I have test, my username, at ad.linuxacademy.com. We'll go ahead and hit enter, type yes, enter in our test password, which says it's just Linux Academy 123 case sensitive, Linux Academy 123 case sensitive. And you'll notice that we're now logged into our machine. It even said, I'm going to create the home directory automatically for you. So it automatically created my test user's home directory inside of ad.linuxacademy.com/test. So now we've configured single sign-on for our Red Hat Enterprise Linux machine. Make sure you know how to do that with the realm commands. You can also use authconfig-gtk. You'll want to make sure you download and install that, but that's a GUI interface for also doing it as well. So that concludes it for this lesson. Go ahead and complete this lesson.